Good afternoon. Welcome to Smart Trucking Live. Glad you could all join us today. Apparently it's a lovely day in Houston. I just saw Kelly Patterson talking about that. 92 degrees and sunny in Houston. I used to do some running back and forth to Houston Baytown area when I was pulling tankers. I like it down there. There's a lot of chemical refineries in the Houston area, so I was down there fairly often for a couple of years. Got to like it down that neck of the woods. Stephen Foster's here. Good afternoon, sir, from South Dakota, he says. Welcome. Cubano 960 is here. Fred Besmer's in Morris. Hey, Fred, how are you doing? Is the restaurant open there in Morris now? God, one of the best restaurants on the highway before COVID hit. Kathy Fan is here. Might need to get my CDL, she says. I hope you do. I hope you do. It's worth getting. Mike finally made it for the live chat. Glad you could join us, Mike. Andrew's here. Captain Nice Guy is here. Welcome, everyone. Rubber Duck Trucker. Good afternoon, everyone. Jeff Reeves is here. Grilled Mortal is here. Hampter is here. Jeff Reeves. DK the Driver. Ponzi Zombie Killer. There's a handle. Michael Van Horn. Mixer Man Bear. SoCal Sandman is here. Welcome, guys. Riley's here. Andrew Howe. John Angelbeck. Tired of ridiculous hours and dirtbag dispatchers. Loves and Pilot J closed their restrooms last year, remember? Yes, I do. I don't even know what to say about that. Donzel Days here from Norfolk, Virginia. Hello from Long Beach, California. Trucker Harold. 69 degrees in Long Beach. Get that moderating breeze off the ocean. Take a look out. See all the tankers stacked up. They've determined here, they had an oil spill off Huntington Beach here this week earlier, and a pretty substantial oil spill. And they've now determined that the cause of the oil spill was a pipeline underneath the ocean that broke off the shore at Huntington. And the reason it broke was because the pipeline was dragged loose by one of those big freight carriers, one of those big ocean-going sea container ships, hooked its anchor on it and dragged the pipeline until it split. So there's the cause of the spill. All those sea container ships anchored off Huntington, Long Beach, with their anchors dropped, hovering, waiting. One of them hooked a pipeline. So there's why the spill there. It's going to be hard to lay blame on who to charge for that. They're not even sure which tanker did it. They can just tell that that's what's happened. Interesting stuff anyway.
How about before you get started, you acknowledge the poll and then I can remove it?
We put up a poll. Are you satisfied with your current rate of pay as a truck driver? Company drivers, owner-operators, and lease operators.
Yeah, that's why it's quiet.
41% said yes, they were satisfied. 59% said no, they were not satisfied with their pay. Interesting
Out of how many?
Microphone switch there. Hopefully I'm still on.
Out of 80 votes, Sonny.
Out of 80 votes, I see it here. Out of 80 votes. So 60% now it's shifted. 60% says no.
Microphone should be fixed now, guys, by the way.
Not satisfied with their pay.
60-40.
So 60-40 split. Yeah. Interesting topic today. I been keeping up with the trucking news flow, and I've heard a couple of mega carriers now interviewed they're griping. They're saying, well, we raised the pay, but the production hasn't gone up. And I laughed right out loud, and I thought, well, there's a couple of typical CEO mega carrier guys right there. They're up in their office and they're looking at the numbers rather than downstairs and talking to their drivers. They're just interested in the numbers and the money. And there's their first mistake, in my opinion, right there. But it amazes me that this driver shortage now has become a worldwide problem. And, we've discussed this before. Truly, there isn't a driver shortage. It's just that people won't work for the money they're paying. It's now become a worldwide problem. England is experiencing a huge driver shortage. People that just won't work for the money and the conditions. And the EU is in the same boat. And I don't understand why people don't get the fact that certainly part of it is pay, a big part of it is pay, but the living and the working conditions also suck. And they were saying in this one interview I heard on BBC that in Great Britain there are virtually no truck stops and virtually nowhere to park for the night or safe parking with food or anything like that. So I guess it's really bad in Britain, and they're paying $15 an hour and no place to park, no respect, no good food, and they can't understand why people don't want to drive the trucks over there anymore. It's not a whole lot different than here. It just never ceases to amaze me. But I got a real kick out of these CEOs way up in their glass towers, thinking, imagine the audacity. Here we open up our wallets and raise the pay, and we still can't get drivers to work 70, 80, 90 hours a week and live on fast food with no place to sleep that's safe. They just don't get it, and it just amazes me that they can't. But that's how far removed they are from the reality of trucking these days. And it's kind of humorous and it's kind of sad all at the same time. Anyway, that's my quick rant on it. Jonathan Messer's here. Hey, Jonathan. Better late than never, he says. But it just, Rubber Duck Trucker says no truck stop. That's the whole of New England. Yeah, and that's right too. It's virtually impossible to get a spot up there, or God, even anywhere in the Eastern Seaboard that's any good. That's one of the big reasons I quit running there. They offer you better money, but if there isn't a safe place to sleep, why bother? Hi, Dave. I'm here in Jamaica. Do you know anything about Sackman trucks? They are taking over the trucking industry here, maybe because they're so cheap. This is from Devion Lindsay in Jamaica. No, I'm not familiar with Shackman trucks. Have any of you guys ever heard of them before? But I guess they're taking over trucking in Jamaica. Interesting. No, I'm not aware of them. Flash says, why can't they create more parking? There is so much more land out there. And there's a really valid question. And it's interesting to note that parking is one of the biggest issues for truck drivers. And here in this $3.5 trillion infrastructure bill that Biden is proposing, there's not one red cent donated to create more trucking or more safe truck parking for truck drivers. Not $1. It's one of the hugest problems with our industry. No safe parking, and Washington just tends to ignore it and overlook it and hopes it goes away and solves itself. DK the driver. No one wants to drive because the entry level pay is too low. Certainly that is a big problem. And all sorts of guys that get into this industry don't really have an idea of what this industry is all about. And it's not just that they find out that they're working a whole lot of hours for free. It's the fact that they're living like a dog out of a truck eating fast food for weeks at a time. MTW USA was offered $17 an hour from Saddle Creek in Florida. $17 an hour.
Kids at Walmart make better.
Yeah. The cashiers at Walmart make better money than that. You can make the same money doing Uber or DoorDash at home. Yeah. Like, why would you want to spend nights away from home out on the road? $17 an hour, and it's down in the city close to me. It was $18 an hour up here in Toronto. Just, you wouldn't even think about doing it. Why would you bother doing it for that kind of money? You wouldn't even look at it for twice that amount. It's just pathetic. But anyway, I don't think people that aren't in the trucking industry truly appreciate what a rough lifestyle it can be. I think that's a lot of it. And they're very out of touch. And they're very out of touch, and all the companies don't want to spend any more than they absolutely have to. They'll spend millions of dollars on this safe tech stuff that doesn't particularly work, but they will not pony up to pay professional drivers what they're worth. And they just cannot understand why they can't get drivers. McDonald's hiring here for $14 an hour. No experience and not many questions. Show up and get paid. Yeah. Why go through the crap? Saddle can confirm Saddle Creek is a joke, says Varsar. Too bad. But that's, and now they've painted themselves so every truck driver knows that they're a joke and not even worth talking to. Shannon Thomas Trucking. JB is now taking drivers with new CDLs. At one time, JB Hunt was the brunt of all trucking jokes, and they've been replaced by Schneider and now Swift. But JB Hunt used to be the worst you could do, and they changed their business model by doing more stuff off rail than anything else. But I gather their pay still hasn't improved. Nussbaum Transportation is offering $2,200 a week. That's from Trucker Herald. Nussbaum has not a bad reputation, frankly, and that's, considering how long your week is, that might not be bad money at all. SoCal says JB Hunt will hire anyone, and that's been true since the 60s, I think. I'm sorry to hear that hasn't changed. Andrew Pfeiffer, McDonald's in BC is hiring full-time starting at $17.50 an hour. So they've McDonald's has already trumped Saddle Creek Trucking in Florida. They're already paying more. They ought to be embarrassed. I hope they are embarrassed. Boulder Creek, Colorado McDonald's pays burger flippers $18 an hour. Walmart warehouse in Cheyenne, Wyoming is paying $24 an hour. Yeah, it's pretty easy to find better money than $17 an hour for a professional driver. That's just an insult. You almost. I was gonna say something I shouldn't say. But anyway.
So don't say it.
Yes, I'm not gonna say it. But anyway, just they're not even worth your consideration. Trucker Herald. Nussbaum makes the top five companies to work for in 2021. I can believe that. I've heard some good things about them. So if they can guarantee you $2,200 a week, and like a normal working week, nothing stupid or over the top, that's pretty fair money these days.
James, thank you very much for the 5 beans, my friend. New York isn't putting in any parking, but they're turning more and more tech stops into inspection stations. Thank you very much for the 5, James.
Yeah, thank you. Flash says, you could work at McDee's, smoke weed, and be happy. You can't do that driving a truck, but you can do it at McDee's. So even if the money was on par, you'd still be happier at McDonald's. Joe Cummings, Hershey Foods here, hiring starting labor $20 an hour, moving up to $24 after 60 days, full benefits on the first day, and they're trying to hire 200 more people. Hershey Foods. That doesn't sound like too bad a deal, frankly. You know what? And be home every night? Why wouldn't you do that? $20 an hour moving up to $24 an hour after 60 days? That's not a bad deal at all. It's certainly, you know, worth looking at over like a $17 an hour over the road truck driving job. They should just be embarrassed, those people. Somebody should tell them so too. Maybe I'll write them and let them know what I think. I should do that. Rubber Duck, I get a $1,800 guarantee a week as long as you're available for 8 hours a day to work. That's a fair enough deal. Rubber Duck Trucker, that's fair enough. Chicopee in Ohio starts off at $16 an hour. Everyone, instead of eating fast food, they're going to go work for the fast food joints now. Intermodal was fun, but Croxton Rail Yard, Norfolk Southern, and Jersey City was like a third world country. Yeah, I can believe that. I've been in some of those rail yards down in Jersey, and they're just not safe places. They're dirty and they're not safe. And, you know, why would you want to go in and work at a place like that? SoCal says Nussbaum has nice equipment. That was always important to me. You don't want to take something out that's just going to break down on you, or the wheels fall off and cause you to have a wreck. Trucker Harold, Maverick Transportation is guaranteeing $1,900 a week and home on weekends if you don't mind hauling flatbed. Maverick Transportation, let me just throw this in. Technically, I would consider them a mega carrier, and they are the only mega carrier that I ever hear anything good about. And I've heard lots good about Maverick. So, flatbed work is good work if you're careful. Nothing wrong with them at all. Simon Tilley, I'm in the UK and I'm earning £28 an hour working for a major supermarket. That's nearly $49 Canadian an hour, as compared to $15 an hour for the truck driver that supplies the supermarket. Simon, interesting. Appreciate the input. Thank you. It gives you an idea of how poorly paid the truck drivers over in Britain are. No wonder they can't find people to drive the trucks. Wade the Fourth Crusade. AAA Cooper here in Dallas, Texas, is hiring CDL drivers at $31 an hour. Now we're getting to it. That's a little more like it. I can't remember what the Lettuce King said he was making by the hour down there when he was working down there in the hour. It was, I think it was $38 or $40 an hour, which is a little more like it when you're working by the hour. That's, $17 an hour.
Captain Nice Guy, thank you very much for the 20 beans, my friend. Good to see you in the chat this afternoon. I feel like I made better money back when I got a percentage of the load. The money's never been bad, but my paychecks were better back then. Thank you very much for the 20, Captain Nice Guy.
Captain Nice Guy, thank you. And I think everybody's paychecks were better back then. But part of the reason was, too, that the cost of living was a whole lot less. So your paycheck went a whole lot farther and seemed a whole lot bigger. I think that was part of it. Rubber Duck Trucker says, I prefer Smith Transport Inc.'s equipment. Smith has nice equipment. They update it constantly. They are a sharp fleet, well-run fleet.
BOQI, thank you very much for the $5 donation, my friend. I've been a fan of your channel and watch all of your videos. Wow, thank you for giving us amazing content. I've been watching for 3 years now. Thank you, he says. Thank you very much for appreciating our channel and everything that we put out. Thank you for the support.
Thank you, sir.
Glad you could make it to the live stream this afternoon.
I feel underappropriated at my company. 42 cents a mile, flatbed. I never ask for home time or slack. I do 62 miles an hour for a fuel bonus, and they don't want me idling, and they're rude and dispatch, and I'm unhappy. And yeah, I couldn't work for a place that didn't treat me well and that I didn't enjoy the work and I wasn't happy. There are plenty of really good carriers out there. Everybody's hiring. I would walk away from a carrier that wasn't treating me properly. There's no reason to have to put up with that. John Angelback says you all have great radio voices. Thank you. It's probably the equipment, but thank you, appreciate it. We've heard from a number of people about Nick's voice and how radio friendly that is. Andrew Howe, I work percentage on a 53-foot step deck, and a bad week for me is like $1,600. That's still livable. What's a good week? What's an average week? I'd like to know. Farthair says, I was recently passed by a Smith Transport 379. It's a very nice rig. Yeah, they are. And they still take the time to color match their trailers and their trucks. They're black. And I like it when the trailer matches the truck. I think that's worth the extra money. I think that's sharp. My following distance detector goes off so quickly. I'm so sick of the cameras spying on me. Cascadias break down twice per month. The Cascadias are having a rough time this year. They've been recalled a couple of times for various things, exhaust issues and other things. They're having a bit of a rough time. It's kind of what happens when you rush production. SoCal Sandman. Nick makes a great announcer. Yeah, he kind of does. He kind of does. Thanks, SoCal.
Yeah, kind of. That's flattering. All right.
Well, he does. He does.
Yeah, I don't need you to tell me that.
All
Thanks.
right.
Kelly Patterson, thank you very much for the 10 beans, my man. Nowadays, considering the environment, shouldn't get hazmat. I assume that was meant to say, shouldn't we be getting hazmat pay as a cost of living increase that matches inflation? Thank you very much for the 10, my man.
Yes, Kelly, you're absolutely right. We should have at least have pay that matches the increase in inflation, but truly we should have better than that, because the idea is, especially with truck drivers, there is no pension plan at the end of the rainbow. You've got to be able to build up your bank account and save for retirement. You've got to be able to make enough to do that and put away for a rainy day. Truck wages, driver wages, should be ahead of the cost of inflation and the cost of living. Better than the cost of living increases every year.
Kyle coming in with the 5 beans as well. Did you ever see the comment on your last video about how I have a 17L cat? Heard you asking.
Yes, Kyle, I did ask that, and I didn't catch the comment on where you got that block from. So I'm still interested. That's a hell of a motor. What do you plan to do with it? I imagine you plan to stick it in a truck and go trucking with it. But yeah, I'd be really interested in the details on that. And I gather you're doing the work yourself, Kyle? Give me some answers here.
Jonathan Mestro coming in with the 5 as well. Good to see the regulars in the chat this afternoon. Thank you very much for the generosity today, guys. What's your opinion on giving a carrier 2-week notice in this day and age? From what I've heard, for the most part, carriers screw you over. Thank you for the donations, guys.
Jonathan, I think what you've heard is pretty much the case. It's just they never treat you with respect after you give them proper notice. So that's a tough question. I always like to do it, but in some cases I haven't done it because I just knew what the results would be from watching other people that did. So these days, I think you'd have to judge it for yourself and decide, knowing the carrier that you're working for the way you do, and maybe give them notice and a stipulation that you're willing to do local or something like that for the next 2 weeks, but you do not want to be doing over the road where they can put you out there and you miss your end date. I think that's probably the best way to handle it. Qualify your request, I guess, or your notice. Qualify your notice.
We actually do have a video on our channel about leaving your carrier as well.
Yes, and we do. That's right. Rubber Duck Trucker. Hey, Smart Trucking, why don't y'all do Sirius XM? I'd love to do Sirius XM. I shouldn't even say this. I was listening to Road Dog Trucking just this morning, in fact, and I was disappointed to find how much it's gone downhill from what it used to be. It used to be excellent. I think they could use a better trucking show on Sirius XM these days.
Dave isn't serious enough to go on Sirius XM.
I could certainly do better than some of them on there. I'm not a fan of Kevin Rutherford. He puts me to sleep. I don't think he knows a whole lot either. I'd love to be on Sirius XM.
John Angelback, that's actually one that we've been looking at in terms of Spotify. We're thinking we might be uploading our next set of podcasts onto Spotify. I have yet to mention that as a suggestion, but we're thinking about doing some uploads to Spotify, yeah.
Captain Nice Guy. I'm going to give him a good review. I remember that video. It's one of my favorites. Thank you, Captain Nice Guy. I appreciate the kind words. Thank you, sir. Yes, and Nick was in that one too. Joe Cummings. When I started in the late 70s at a steel company driving flatbed, $10 an hour, Blue Cross Blue Shield, major medical dental, prescription eyeglasses, profit sharing, and a pension plan. Boy, that was a pretty good deal, and that was in the 70s. So it's, if that had kept up with the rate of inflation, that'd be a damn good job these days, because all those benefits are serious benefits, and that's worth a lot in my view. Rubber Duck Trucker. I usually leave a company on Friday and start with the new company on Monday. But I'll give 2 weeks notice and then let the company know after my 2 weeks is up and I am gone. It's kind of a secret, silent 2 week notice. Kelly Patterson. My ex's wife's dad was making $20+ an hour as a union driver for Safeway back in the 70s. Yes. Yeah, the wages have not kept up with the cost of living. I was making, just as an example, minimum $1 an hour in 1984. That was my base guaranteed minimum for for everything, all included, was $1 a mile. That was with my own truck, of course. But geez, that was, and that was back in 84, and you still see guys these days, owner-operators, working for $1 a mile. It's crazy. Grilled Mortal. Did you ever listen to the Truckin' Bozo? Yes, I did. Grilled Mortal. And you're showing your age there, because he's long gone now, I think. But yes, I did back in the day. And that was back when truck radio was good. SoCal Sandman, $20 an hour in the 70s is major bucks. Yeah, yes it was. And now in Florida you can't even get 20. You can only get 17. Man, and Florida is not the cheapest state to live in either.
J-Rock, you guys helped me get to where I'm at in trucking. I listened to y'all, paid attention, and took notes. I'd be curious to know what kind of notes you took, but other than that, thank you very much for the kind words, J-Rock.
Thank you. Trucker Herald, Safeway and Kroger drivers make excellent money. Now, Trucker Herald, those guys are unionized still, though, are they not? Because I know the guys that are still unionized, and Yellow are still unionized too, as far as I know. UPS drivers may not be much longer, but they are right now, or at least the UPS over the road guys that just got bought out by that carrier in Montreal. But it's funny. As many problems as there were with the unions, the Teamsters in Hoffa back in the day ran a tight ship, and everybody made money. I had some beefs about it. I was a Teamster myself for a little while. I didn't like the seniority system so much, because when you were bottom guy of the rung, sometimes you didn't go out for weeks at a time when freight was slow. I was one of those guys. And for that reason, I found that I couldn't, pay my bills working on a system like that. But there were a lot good to be said about the unions back in the day. And one of the things was that their wages always kept up and exceeded the cost of living. Rubber Duck Trucker. I get at least 75 cents per mile as a company on W-2. 75 cents per mile. That's That is damn respectable these days. Damn respectable. That's one of the top paying mileage rates that I've heard.
Got any other questions in your notes?
I am something else, and I'll ask this of you guys. Do you find that you're being treated with more respect lately? Well, since COVID and all of that stuff, and there was a brief time where everyone appreciated us and we were given respect because of working through COVID. But do you find that's kind of come and gone already, or are people still treating you with that same type of respect? Like, at the shippers that you go to regularly, has that gone back to normal now, or do they still appreciate you a little more? Brandon Mum, the company I'm with now is usually $7,000 to $9,000 take home after taxes, pension, full benefits, boot allowance, discounts at stores with work clothes, and I lost the rest of it. Unions are a great idea, and we have suffered since labor unions are like 2% of the workforce now. Yeah, it's unions encompass a very small percentage anymore of the drivers out there. Well, you take that same $20 an hour from the 1970s and add an average of 4% inflation per year for 50 years, that will give you around $70 an hour today. Kelly Patterson, exactly right. And it's a perfect illustration of how far behind the wages are and have been for years. And when these mega carriers up the wages to like 38 cents or 40 cents a mile and think they're doing a big thing, the truth of the matter is that we have been so far behind for so many years that I'm not sure it'll ever catch up, frankly. It's got so far to go.
Kyle Gentile, thank you for another 5 beans, my friend. Holy crap, that's a lot of specs there that I'm just going to save myself the time of saying out loud. And Dave, I'm going to let you read through what he's got on his 17L Cat there.
Okay.
That sounds like an interesting build, but I wouldn't know.
Oh, I found it. If I can just get rid of all this stuff. 17-liter Cat is a C16 MSX, stock rods and crank, with C18 pistons and liners, stage 4 head, cryo-treated head bolts, marine cam, custom compound turbos. Oh, that's a beast. That's a beast. Have you got it all together now? Is she running, Kyle? And would you know what kind of horsepower you're putting to the ground on that thing? The marine cam is something that the Lettuce King always ran, and the engines he built were amazing, frankly, and that was half the secret was the marine cam. He actually had a heat shut off because the motor would keep pulling, and it would get so hot, but it wouldn't lose power. It would pull like Jack the Bear, and he actually had a Kaiser shutdown to shut the motor off if it got too bloody hot, if he wasn't careful, if he wasn't watching the barometer. But marine cams, boy, because a boat engine will just pull like Jack the Bear because they're designed for a completely different application. They're designed to push a trawler through the water. Think of the friction involved there. So no wonder they work so beautifully well in a truck. Excellent. Let me know more, Kyle. I'm right interested in that, if you've got it in the truck working yet. Lynn Armstrong, yellow. Lived next to a terminal back in the 70s. Never needed an alarm clock. Always woke up when they cranked up the old air starters when coming to work with those old trucks. Yeah, those air starters, we had them back at Trimac back in the day, and they made a very distinctive noise. I didn't care for them much because the trucks were so old. The air always leaked off overnight. They never start in the morning when you needed them to. You had to get someone else to fill the air tank for you before you could start the damn thing. But they certainly did have a distinctive noise.
All right, your poll results should be in there, Dave.
It's right in the chat. Great big gray fox.
Do you feel like you're being treated with respect? 55% said no. 44% said, or yes. 44% said yes, and that was a composite of 56 votes. So the no's have it, unfortunately. Kind of a sad statistic. Andrew Howe, what's your opinion on Oversize? Looks like it's going to increase my pay at least 75% on W-2 percentage, to be specific. If you've got the nerve and the skills to do Oversize, I think that's a pretty good niche to work in. The pay is good, and the hours are reasonable, because a lot of places you can't pull Oversize after sunset and before sunrise. So I know guys that have gone to pulling Oversize and have survived in a niche when lots of other guys were starving to death. So I think it might be a smart place to be.
Just before we drift too far from it, do the results from that surprise you at all? Or
I'm disappointed in the results. I'm sadly I'm not as surprised as I might be, but I'm disappointed. And that was my feeling as to how it had gone. It was kind of a flash in the pan. The appreciation was kind of a flash in the pan, and then everyone just kind of forgets about truck drivers after that. And, it's a sad thing to say, but they only appreciate you when the store shelves are empty and you show up with a load of groceries. That's when they appreciate you. And 10 minutes later, you're forgotten. Aviator Trucker. Truck stops, restaurants, and other facilities are subpar for someone to have to put up with. Dirty showers, dirty lots. Aviator Trucker. And that is a big beef with me. And that's not so much true in the States, although it's sad that everybody's gone to fast food down there and no sit-down restaurants anymore. But up here in Canada, that's really true. And I won't even truck in Canada anymore because of just exactly what you've just said. Midlife Trucker. I'm a W-2 driver making 6 figures, and it's my second year in trucking. The company owner is an active driver. Midlife Trucker, you're in a good spot. You're with a good place. And I like a carrier where even the owner still drives. I really like that. Because then you never lose touch with what's going on with your people. AB5 is another blow to the industry. That we haven't heard the last of that yet. There was an announcement the other day that it had been decided. That was false. The AB5 may still be heard yet by the Supreme Court. So it's not over until the fat lady sings. So we'll just have to wait and see whether the Supreme Court takes on the case and makes a decision on it. And it'll be a hell of a decision either way. It'll change the industry either way, for one way or the other, for better or for worse. And there's good and bad sides to both. And we've gone into that in videos, but it'll be interesting to see the final end result. What do you think of a 2022 Kenworth W9 with a Cummins X15? The Cumminses some of them have been really good, some of them have been really bad. SoCal Sandman here has had excellent luck with his. So it just kind of comes to seem to be kind of a hit or a miss as to whether you get a good one or a bad one. But certainly there are good ones out there. Sigmund, I drive a step deck. The appreciation is still pretty good, and I am an owner operator and doing pretty good. That's good to hear, man. That's good to hear. Step deck. That can be tricky finding the right loads when you've got a step deck. But yeah, I think there's still good money in it. I'll be an ice road trucker, so I won't have to worry about Canadian truck stops. Outdoor Quarry and Friends. Probably just as well, because there really aren't any worth stopping at anymore. There's a couple of TAs and Flying J's in southern Ontario that aren't too bad, but the petrol cans are just a waste of time. You're just destitute and dirty. Swift is paying me 60 cents per mile. I'm only having 9 months experience and I'm on a dedicated account. I ain't going anywhere for now. That's from Sean McGuire. I don't blame you. 60 cents a mile is good. Dedicated account is good. Nothing bad in that scenario. No, I'd stay put. If they're treating you well, and I assume they are. Blue Cipher, what you said about Swift, say what you will about Swift, but I start with them here soon. Don't have a CDL yet, no experience, and I'm going to start with 60 cents a mile on a dedicated craft route. That's just what someone else was saying. So maybe they've been one of the ones that have pulled up their socks. Certainly they needed to be one of the ones to pull up their socks. So I'm glad to hear that. Swift has $1,000 a week minimum pay right now. Could be higher, but if they keep you busy, they won't have to worry about it. You won't have to worry about it. 60 cents a mile is good. Let's hope we all get the miles we want at 60 cents a mile now. That's the secret. Will you get your 2,500 miles a week at that? But I hope so. The Knight brothers now run Swift, and that means their management team is vastly improved over the previous owner, in my opinion.
Jonathan, thank you very much for the 5, my friend. Ever had any interesting moments in Pittsburgh? Just picked up there and never want to go back. That city is not made for trucks.
No, Jonathan, I can honestly say that I've probably been lost in most big cities in the USA, but I got lost in a really ugly area of Pittsburgh one time, and sadly, I wasn't as lost as I thought I was, and ended up finding the place I had to pick up, and I couldn't believe the carrier that I was working for at the time had sent me into such a crap hole as this place in Pittsburgh. And I've been in Pittsburgh a couple of times. If there is a nice part of that town, I don't know where it is, and I've never seen it. But Pittsburgh is Eastern Seaboard to me still, and I don't want to go back. I damn near got stuck underneath a low bridge in Pittsburgh too, and the tanker I was pulling would have been fine, but my stacks wouldn't have made it through the tunnel, and I ended up doing a really ugly turnaround in Pittsburgh one time too. So yeah, I'm sure for the guys that grew up in that area, no problem, but for a stranger, I found Pittsburgh hard to get around.
I think you might misunderstood the question there. He was saying he's definitely not a fan of Pittsburgh.
Yeah. No, I'm just agreeing with him. I don't want to go back either.
I was lost as to why you were saying you thought it was why you thought it was good, but
I wasn't saying it was good.
Or you commented a little bit on that, but never mind. Just misinterpreted.
Papa Smurf, what respect? More and more I'm finding that shippers and receivers will not even let you in the building to get your paperwork or use the restroom. And $15 for a shower? $18 to park? Need I say more? No, sir. No, you don't need to say anymore. That pretty much says it all. And I agree. Completely agree. And then they wonder why no one wants to drive a truck anymore. God, I don't know why. It escapes me, doesn't it? Just, what do you say? You'd love to see one CEO spend a week in a truck and go through some of the stuff like that truck drivers go through about not being allowed in the building. Got a sign for the piece count you've got no idea how many pieces they put on the trailer. You're not allowed on the dock. You get fined for an insecure load. You're not allowed on the dock to secure it. It's just endless volumes of crap. And nobody with a brain should have to put up with it very long. If you're in a deal like that with a carrier like that, you just need to find a better place or get out. And sadly, there's too many carriers that will send you into customers just like that. And you know what? I'd lose the customer. That's what I'd be doing.
Well, I already know I'm going to butcher the first name, so I'm just going to call you Mr. Singh. Thank you very much for the new membership, my friend. Welcome to the Smart Trucking team. Hope you enjoy the benefits.
Thank you for joining us, sir. Appreciate it. Matthew Pesco, hey man. Rates are going up, but so is the cost of living. We really need to pay attention right now. Yes, we do, because it's kind of the final kick at the horse. We've just got the cart rolling here, and pay is starting to go up, but we can't slack off because it's now or never. They've either got to make it or break it here in the next couple of years. So if the pay doesn't keep up with the cost of living, no one's going to be driving the damn trucks anymore, and they're going to be praying that these trucks that don't need drive, the autonomous trucks, they're going to be praying those things come out early because they won't have us to kick around. I know Night Transportation did a ride along in the truck for their office staff so they can go and see what the drivers go through. That's a good idea, and more carriers should do that. Send their staff on a ride along, and just not for one day and not for one load. Just watch some of the crap they go through in a week. Give them a real taste of what truck driving is like. Old East Coast cities were not designed for West Coast style trucks with tall stacks and long frames. It's a completely different world with lots of little bridges and tight maneuvering situations. Absolutely right, Joe. And we've got Old Montreal and Quebec City. And it's the same story there. Just narrow streets. Some of them are even cobblestone still in Old Montreal. And they're just not designed for trucks. But that doesn't stop people from ordering a 53-foot, trailer full of stuff for a warehouse in that area. And that's where the sales staff should jump in and know better and ensure that these are safe destinations for trucks to go to and get in and out of. But the sales staff never bother to do that, and that's a serious issue all on its own.
Back in 39, coming in with the $20 donation. Thank you very much for that. Dave, have you ever run out of fuel before? If so, what happened next?
No, I have never run out of fuel partially because I was always paranoid of running out of fuel. And if you live up in Canada, especially in the winter, you learn not to get low on fuel, because even if you get down to quarter tanks sometimes up here, it could start to gel, especially with this new crap they call fuel. So no, I never have run out of fuel, and I never did want to either. I was always paranoid about that. I picked up a load today in Corpus Christi, Texas. It's easy to tell that you were else made for 40-foot trailer and trailers because my cab was not 10 feet into the road. It's been a while since I've been to Corpus Christi, but you encounter all sorts of docks that haven't changed with the times. Like when I started trucking, the trailers were 40 feet long, and now they're 53 feet long, and virtually none of the old places, the old docks, ever bothered to modify their dock system or parking lot or anything to accommodate the bigger trailers. And they still have, telephone poles on the corner that you have to struggle to get around. They still let their employees park in the parking lot and be in your road. And, that's something the sales team or the dispatch team should be taking care of, is making sure you can actually get your truck into some place they've promised a delivery to. But yeah, all sorts of old cities just are not set up for 53-footers, especially West Coast 53-footers with big long frames, as somebody mentioned. I mucked up my screen here somehow again. It's interesting. I find it interesting to notice, though, that this problem has been worldwide. It's not just here in North America that truck drivers have been treated poorly. It's in Europe and Britain too. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing. that truck drivers have always have been poorly treated and undertreated for a long time now, and not just here but everywhere. I read in the paper today that Britain is actually bringing in the military. Truck drivers won't even deliver fuel there to the gas stations anymore, and in Britain they're bringing in the military to drive the trucks to deliver the gas to the stations, so everyone else can still drive their cars around. That's how bad it's gotten over there. Take pictures and video of impossible situations and send to dispatch in the sales team. John Angelback. That's a really good idea. You know, I wish I had taken the time and had the technology to do exactly that, because that is a great idea. You know, it's funny too though. A carrier will have a customer like that their trucks are into every week. And every week a truck driver will come back and say, hey, this place is a dump. Don't send us there again. And the dispatch team just turns a deaf ear and just keeps sending trucks because they don't want to have to deal with it. They don't figure it's their problem. And, you know, that's where dispatch has changed too. Dispatch used to be a support system for the drivers, and that's no longer true. And that's a sad state of affairs anymore. And that's another reason drivers won't stay, is they don't like to put up with unprofessional dispatchers, and there's a ton of those anymore. Brandon Mum, Winnipeg sucks to get around too. Winnipeg's got that ring road that's built out of cement slabs, and then you just go ba-bum, 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 ba-bum all the way around Winnipeg. It drives me crazy. Ever been to a Wally World warehouse? Yes, they treat drivers like crap. No, I went once and never went again. You know, they had loads heading out to the California area that, you know, would have helped me out and done me good, but I simply did not have the patience to sit in a warehouse facility for 24 or 36 hours waiting to get unloaded and being treated like a dog in the meantime with no food. So I did it once. Never do it again. Rubber Duck says, look for a company that don't do bonuses. It's just a way for them to make excuses why you didn't get your bonus, like you idled 2 minutes too much or stuff like that. And companies, these bonus systems and pay scams, they always seem to come up with some reason you didn't get the bonus. Yep, that's pretty commonplace too. I don't like. You got to work for an honest carrier, and there's too many scabby carriers out there with dirty tricks like that. You've got to find an honest carrier to work for, and that's, you know, that in itself is a challenge.
If they had better hiring practices, then they wouldn't need those.
Yeah, if they had better hiring practices and they treated their people better, the drivers would stay. But that's why they've got turnover. But some of them don't seem to worry about turnover. They just figure drivers are a dime a dozen, and they're going to find out that that's not the case much longer. Even new warehouses being built don't like to give you the space on the East Coast. Yeah, and Kevin, I imagine that's probably because of the price of real estate, but it really doesn't excuse the fact that you can't put a 53-footer in a hole designed for a UPS truck. You know, it just doesn't work. In my opinion, bonuses are a way to screw you out of extra pay that you might expect. Yeah, and that happens all the time. You have had situations that have reinforced your opinion of that. That's why you think that way, and I get it. I agree, because all sorts of carriers do that. Jonathan Mensler says GP Transco is pretty straightforward. The top 50% of the company gets a fuel bonus, and they are not shady. They treat us very well. That's from Jonathan Mensler. A good recommendation for GP Transco right there. We found them to be very good, upright people. What's happening in Britain will happen here too if things don't change quick. The cat trucker. It's people will pay attention when the gas stations start to run out of gas, and the grocery shelves are empty. And apparently one of the lowest paid segments of our industry here in North America are the guys that haul gas right now. And that just amazes me because that's hazmat material. It can be dangerous work. They're trying to squeeze those big tankers into little gas stations with cars whipping in and out all the time. Half the companies now are the carriers charge if it spills over into the parking lot, it becomes the driver's fault, even though it's the station that didn't dip their tanks correctly. And it's a hazardous job, and it doesn't pay particularly well. And it will not surprise me at all if one of the first guys to go find something else to do, and it's already started. Guys won't haul fuel to the gas stations anymore, and it's a sad state of affairs. They were one of the higher paying types of trucking at one time. Scrap Iron says Mercer and Landstar is the only decent place to run for. I was leased on and never treated better. That's Mercer out of Kentucky, and Landstar we all know out of Florida. And Landstar has been around for many, many years. Mercer's been around for quite a while too, but they have well-established reputations. Herschel says it's pathetic that this is the one industry that the very people they claim to depend on are the ones that treat them the worst. The drivers, of course. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? The nation would stop without us, and yet so few people truly appreciate truck drivers. I guess it's because people they're so busy with their lives now, and they got so much going on, and they can hardly pay their bills, and they can hardly hang on to their jobs that they don't take the time to think about others. But they ought to be thinking about us, because we're the ones hauling the food. On track to clear 70K this year, Monday to Friday, home every weekend, hauling trash to the landfill, wood chips to pulp mills. 2 years into my CDL out of Spokane, Washington. Leon Trimble, and living in God's country all at the same time up in Washington there. That's a good deal. That's a good deal. And not hauling, nasty stuff. Monday to Friday home, no hazmat and wood chips there. That's all right. That's an all right job. Way to go there, Leon. Stick with that deal. That's all right. Outdoor Quarry and friends, they seem to forget about the last trucker strike. I say we strike again and let them talk smack more. And let's see them talk smack more than laugh out loud. It's I don't know. Truck strikes. I don't think truck strikes are even effective anymore. Sadly enough. Pardon me. And my next video is actually about truck strikes and why they aren't as effective as they used to be for certain reasons. So stay tuned for that because it's going to be a good one. Brandon, drivers and owner-operators with the company I'm with are treated like gold. Easy to get home time, and they're an awesome company. That's good to hear, Brandon. That's good. The problem is with us. Truck drivers have never stuck together since I have been around. You don't necessarily have to strike. You just have to agree to low wage. You just don't agree to low wages, and that's part of what I say in my next video. But you don't have to strike. But you do have to stick together, and even that's part of why strikes no longer work anymore. And it's easier, if you're not being paid what you need, it's easier these days to just find a better carrier because lots of carriers are out there that are paying a whole lot better. And that's the easiest course these days. Please do strike, but for weeks, not one day. Yeah, someone will get the point across. Too much has been BS going on. Yeah, a one day truck strike is pointless, and these and I say this in the video too about these slow rolls that they do. That is the stupidest thing that I have ever seen. When you need to garner public support for the fact that you're not being well paid and well treated, when you need to garner public support and then to tick everybody off by creating your own traffic jams, that is the dumbest idea I think they've ever come up with. And I would never, ever entertain being part of something like that. That's just stupid. Lost it. Smith Transport has home weekly or bi-weekly or on weekend during the week. Truck strikes don't work because people say I don't like delivering here, so let's strike everyone. Yeah, and that's another problem too. Not everybody can agree on anything anymore. It's too diverse an industry, and I go into that in the video. Please do strike. Yeah, that's the same comment there about one day strike doesn't do anybody any good. But it's such a diverse community, the trucking community anymore, that you just you can't get people to agree on anything half the time anymore. Brandon, Dave, thanks. Your videos help me determine good from bad carriers. Well, thank you, Brandon. That is one of our biggest goals here. Flashback. Whoever came up with that slow roll idea needs to get spanked. Well, I don't know if spanking would do it, but some form of punishment. Sigmund. Everyone likes toilet paper, but they don't really appreciate the fact that you need a truck driver to get the toilet paper. Yeah, there's a major consideration. They don't really think that whole process through until they run out. Scrapper on. Dave, you have an awesome channel. Subscribed. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We try our best. I enjoy these chats every week. I really do. Speaking of Seattle, Tacoma area, they are also notorious. We need trucks to bring our stuff, but we don't want your kind to stay in here. And it's funny that there are cities like that, and I didn't know that Seattle was like that, but there are many across the country that they want their stuff, but they don't want trucks coming in and out.
Get the dirty truck driver.
Yeah, get the dirty truck driver. Toronto here is like that. They don't want the truck traffic. They want their stuff, but they don't want the trucks. I was a Teamster in the late 90s. They are not what they were when the Hoff was around, nor were they when my grandfather drove truck. No, the Teamsters have not been the same since about 75 when Hoff disappeared and was out of it there, wherever he went. But no, it is not the organization it once was. His son isn't near the man that he was, Hoffa Jr. I'm talking about here. And he's set to retire and has accomplished virtually nothing with the Teamsters. I challenge anyone here to think of an everyday product that hasn't traveled on a truck at some point. Jonathan Menstro. Jonathan, I don't think there is anything like that. Maybe bulk oil that's come on a tanker to a train or something like that. Other than that, I don't think you could think of anything. Teamster, this is David Effelson. Teamsters were great in the 60s, now not so good. And part of their problem was they had a really good concept, a really good idea, but it was like anything else. They let the corrupt people get the better of them and twist the union out of control. And that was one of the biggest problems with the Teamsters. They became corrupt. If you want to know what a real strike is like read up on the longshoreman strike in 1934. Matthew Pesco. I've read up on the Minneapolis strike, for instance, with the Teamsters back in 1934, and they were violent strikes, and that's a part of the history of strikes that I would like to think that we've progressed past, because certainly people caved in strikes partially through intimidation and violence, but I like to think we're better than that now, and I hope never to see another strike like those were. I'm probably the last person alive that remembers Mike Parkhurst, and no, you're not, because I subscribed to the original Overdrive magazine that he published before it got bought out here years ago. I was a subscriber of Mike's, and I know well who he was. So no, that's two of us that remember him. I'm not a truck driver, but I'm very interested in the logistics of trucking, and I've learned a lot here. My daily driving habits on I-65 have changed a lot. I am much more respectful of truckers. That's Roberta Later, I guess, is how you say the last name. Roberta, thank you. Thank you. Truck drivers are part of the general public, so it hurts their feelings when the rest of the general public doesn't treat them well. Like they treat them like second-class citizens. We take it personally. Ghislaine, I was docked at a cross street when the French Teamster truck drivers burned down a dozen JB Hunt trucks. Wow. Where was that? You know, that seems to ring a bell. I refresh my memory on that. Not to mention, slow rollers can also interfere with emergency services, like an ambulance or the fire trucks. This is from Kelly Patterson. How do you think the victims would feel? Exactly. That's a valid point, a huge point, Kelly. And when you they're against the law now anyway, but when you impede something like an ambulance trying to get to the hospital and it costs someone their lives, those guys should be jailed at that point. That's my opinion. In San Francisco, the police got violent. The rest of the city shut down in support of the longshoremen. The governor decided to send in the National Guard to ensure peace. That's from Matthew Pesco. A strike is one thing. Violence is something altogether different. And SoCal Sandman says, and if I ever had CB radio that could reach everyone else all of the time. I remember in the truck strike of 79, I was in British Columbia, and a friend of mine had been trapped down in California when the truck strike hit, and he sat down in Ontario for about a week, and then he ran home. I was living out west at the time, and he ran home and crossed into British Columbia, running mostly at nights, and I ran into him in Cranbrook, BC, in the truck stop one morning, and he'd just come out of there, and he was all happy that he'd made it up unscathed, because there had been violence. They were dropping bricks from the overpasses and stuff like that, and he had a really nice truck and a really nice produce trailer, a reefer trailer, and he was happy to have made it home safely. And we walked around his truck. We were looking at it, admiring it, and here was a bullet hole in one of the stainless back doors. And so he hadn't made it home completely unscathed. Someone had taken a shot at him. I get called number one at least once a month. Craig Beats. I don't know. I would like to take or teach a course on teaching four-wheelers how to operate around trucks. I guess is the best way to say that, because the majority of them have no clue as to how to operate safely around a truck, and then they'll hang out the window and insult us. JB Hunt cut the rates 2 cents a mile. Montreal, Quebec's back in the early 90s. Yeah. Oh, JB Hunt devastated the freight rate structure. Well, shortly after deregulation, they were one of the big players that just decimated the rates. Matthew Pesco. A peaceful strike is much more effective so long as no one crosses the picket line. The problem lies with the scabs. We are likely to see strikes if they mandate vaccinations on truckers. And I talk about that too in the video. And that's a personal choice, I think. You've got to do the right thing for you and your family, and it really has nothing to do with anything else. Nothing else is as important as that. I think you've got to put you and your family first in a situation like that and do what's best for you. And if that means vaccinating, fine. And if that means not vaccinating, also fine, completely acceptable. But I don't think people should be bullied into it. I completely got out of trucking. It wasn't for me.
Too many crazy drivers lately and terrible management that doesn't care at all about their drivers. Alpha guns. I'm sorry to hear that was your experience. It's not like that for everybody, but if you can't find a good place to work, I completely agree. Roger Pinsky's here. Hey, Roger. Dave is really Jimmy Hoffa. I'm above ground, which is the big difference between us, or DB Cooper, and I have no idea how to work a parachute, and I certainly don't have his money. DB Cooper's, that is. But Hoffa had his faults, but he was a brilliant organizer. So that was quite a masterful deal. He managed to get those Teamsters together. 1.4 million members at its peak, and managed the whole thing literally by himself. Quite an amazing feat. The Teamsters have never been the same since they lost him. Scrap iron. Just remember this, guys and gals. Trucking ain't for sissies. No, he's right, and trucker has never been for sissies. That's just the truth of it. Well, I guess we should wrap it up, boys and girls. Thank you all very much for joining us. I really enjoy chatting with you guys. It's kind of like being able to sit around the truck stop in the old days and chew the fat with the other drivers. I think that's why I like it. Joseph says, love your videos. I've learned a whole lot from you. Well, thank you for saying so, Joseph. That's kind of you. Joe Cummings, guys like Jimmy Hoffa and John Lewis must be turning over in their graves when they see what kind of management sucks up to the American workforce has become. Yeah, it's a whole different world out here these days, isn't it? But, really, the Teamsters were formed to fight against the big corporations that were corrupt and did them wrong. And that was one of the best goals to have, I thought. And they did. They changed the landscape on that. And now it's pretty much gone back to the way it was before. Dave, do you remember RWI? Dave Ellison, refresh my memory. What is RWI? It's not ringing a bell right now. John Angelback, time to invest in ballistic glass and Kevlar plates if the riots start up again. Oh God, I hope it never comes to that again. I truly don't. I don't think it accomplishes anything. People just get hurt, and everyone loses respect for people that are involved in violence. It never accomplishes anything.
Tell them how we're working on a series of podcasts about trucker strikes, deregulation, post.
We are working actually on a series of podcasts that we will be doing about different parts of the trucking industry, such as the history in trucking, the deregulation, truck strikes, the Teamsters, that type of thing. We're going to be putting together podcasts on the history basically of trucking. I hope you guys will stay tuned for that and tune in when they come. It should be interesting stuff. I feel that you have to kind of understand the history of this industry before you can appreciate where it is now and why it is the way it is now.
And Dave has a lot to say about it.
And I've got a lot to say about it, because for all sorts of reasons. But it was an industry that I always truly enjoyed and appreciated, but I felt all through my career it could have been better for other people. I was lucky, but a lot of guys weren't. So
Just hold on, we got a hot question. from
okay,
somebody.
hot question.
Just wait. There's a young guy looking, can I be a trucker at 17?
It depends on what kind of trucking you
Say
do.
the question.
Pardon me?
Say the question.
Can I be a trucker at 17? Yes, you can be a trucker. In the States, they won't let you run interstate, like out of the state at that age, but you can certainly drive trucks around your own state. And here in the western provinces of Canada, you can also be a truck driver at 17, but there are provinces here where the insurance regulations don't allow them to insure 17-year-olds behind the wheel. But out in Western Canada, absolutely. So it all depends on where you live and where you want to truck. Jamie says, my grandfather was a Teamster, and he said pretty much the same thing about Hoffa. It's nobody will contend the facts. He was a brilliant organizer, and he had real strengths, and that's what built the Teamsters.
Rebirth, thank you very much for the 5 beans, my friend. Excellent show. I'll try not to turn a Prius into a Pepsi can. Keep the rubber side down. And on that note, that'll do it for us today.
One more pin at the top there.
Dave for president.
President of what?
McDonald's.
President of what? Kathy says. Well, thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Have a good night. Keep the rubber side down.
See you next week.
And we'll see you next week on the backhaul. Good night, everybody.